Welcome to DCRA's presentation on the Community Development Block Grant application. My name is Caitlin. I'm going to be walking you through the application today. The goals of this presentation are first to understand some of the application requirements and also to help you pass threshold review, which is the first step in the review process before your application moves on to the selection committee, and also to provide some tips and pointers to give you the best chance to get your application funded. The first thing that you want to do is have a copy of the application in front of you. If you don't already have it, you can find it on our website. You can go to the website address at the top of this page to find the application. If you scroll down the page a little bit, you'll find the part of the website that looks like this picture here, and you will want to go to the part that's circled in red there, the application packet PDF version. There's some other really great resources on this website, so it might be worth your time to check some of them out. For instance, the application handbook is on this page, and we highly suggest that you read that before you finish up your application. So these are the scoring criteria. The application is divided into 5 different sections, and this shows, basically the weight of each section, the number of points that are awarded to each part. And I'm going to go through each of these individually and go through every single page of the application. But before I do that, I am going to talk about one of the first requirements of this application. That is the public meeting requirement. This is a section of the application that has some really specific requirements, and you have to meet all of them in order for your application to even be considered for funding. So in order to pass the threshold review, you have to meet some really specific requirements about the public meeting. So this is the first step before you even start your application. To get going with your public meeting process, the first phase of it is the planning phase. So this is when you're trying to figure out what projects you would like to propose to your community to be funded by the Community Development Block Grant Program. Here are some suggestions about some things that you can do to start your planning process. First, start brainstorming what projects your community needs and wants, and then also which ones you can successfully implement. So what do you have the capacity to actually accomplish? You can do this by holding informal meetings with community groups. You can survey the community for some input. And then you're going to want to come up with 1 or 2 high priority projects that you will present to the community. And whatever you do during this process, you want to record. I'm going to say this over and over again in this presentation. If you don't record it, then for our purposes, it never happened. So it's really important to record that. If you have meetings with the public, take notes at those meetings, say who was there, what people said. All of this is going to strengthen your application. Next is preparing for the meeting itself. So this public meeting required by the CDBG application is going to be a formal meeting that must be held by the applicant, which is going to be the city or borough. You have to provide reasonable notice. We say that's at least a week, usually more than that. The time and location that you have your meeting has to be convenient for people. So for instance, if you expect a lot of working folks to show up, you don't want to have your meeting on Monday at 10 a.m. because most people are going to be at work. So you want to make sure that it's a time when people can actually participate. You also are required by federal law to accommodate the handicap and to meet the needs of non-English speakers if you expect non-English speakers to show up. So then this is an example of what your public notice can look like. It doesn't have to look exactly like this, but you basically just need to tell people when and where it's going to be, and then you need to tell them what you're going to be talking about at the meeting. You don't have to put the agenda on there. You could just say we are going to discuss potential CDBG projects. That would be fine as well, but this is just a sample to kind of get you started. So the next part is actually holding the meeting itself. Like I said before, there are some very specific requirements that you need to meet when you're actually holding your meeting. First, you want to provide a sign-in sheet. That's so we know who showed up if anybody. Sometimes nobody shows up, and that's okay. But you do want to provide a sign-in sheet so that we can see that community members were actually present. You will be required to explain the CDBG program and funding categories. I highly recommend downloading the application manual for CDBG and reading especially sections 1 and 2. They'll give you a good program overview so that if any questions come up, you'll be able to answer them. There is an $850,000 funding limit for each application, so you need to mention that at your public meeting. And then you also need to mention the 3 categories of applications. That's planning, community development, and special economic development. You will also need to propose at least one project or maybe a couple if you've come up with a few preferred projects. You need to allow community members to comment on your proposed projects and come up with alternative proposals. If they have some projects you haven't considered yet, they need to be able to be allowed to propose those projects. And then you need to show some sort of public consensus or support for this project. You could do that in a lot of different ways. One way could just be through comments. If the public makes a lot of comments in support of this project, that would be a way to show consensus. Or you could ask for a show of hands, for folks who would support whichever project seems to be the highest priority. But you want to, in some way, show that the public is going to be supporting this project. And finally, you have to keep detailed minutes. Like I said before, if you don't record it, then it didn't happen. Your minutes are going to be crucial to passing the threshold review. This next slide shows you exactly what you need to have in your meeting minutes. Like I said before, if you don't record it, then for our purposes, it didn't happen. So this first section kind of shows you the basic outline of some kind of basic things that you need to have in your meeting minutes: the name of the city and borough, obviously, the purpose, the time, all that good stuff. And then there's kind of the meat of your meeting minutes and what actually happened. So in order to pass the threshold review for the CDBG application, your minutes must show that you explained the CDBG program and that $850,000 funding limit, that you discussed the 3 project categories: planning, community development, and special economic development, that you presented at least one proposed project, and that you allowed the community members to both propose alternative projects and comment on the project the projects that have already been proposed. And then you also have to show that you obtained public support for your first priority project. Your minutes have to show all of these things. You're going to put a copy of your minutes in your application, and I highly recommend that you look at this slide before you're finished with your meeting minutes and make sure that you've recorded all of the things that need to be in there.